This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone. Hope you are able to see my screen and also able to hear me clearly. One of you please confirm. Are you able to hear me as well as listen to me?
Yes.
Yeah, please confirm. Okay. Thank you very much. So good morning. So let's start today's session. So far in our ISTQB Advanced Test Manager Certification course, this is the 8th session. So far we started with our first chapter and completed all topics of first chapter. So now we have to start talking about the second chapter. But as I told you earlier, before we move into the second chapter, that is test management, let us take a pause and answer some of the questions typically asked in a ISTQB Advanced Test Manager Certification exam. So I want you to kind of go through this and check for yourself whether are you able to answer them correctly or not. If not, which aspect you did not understand correctly, then you can go back, look at the material again, and maybe look at the syllabus document again and build that proper understanding, because it's a little bit tricky kind of exam, and you have to very clearly understand some of the material specified in the syllabus. In the way syllabus wants you to learn, you have to learn. That is a big issue here. Sometimes as a working professional, you may have a different opinion and you may have actually a right different opinion, but still ISTQB exam you have to pass, then you have to think like ISTQB syllabus. So that keep that in your mind. So we have completed the first chapter. Coming Tuesday, we will start talking about our second chapter, which is actually the heart of the syllabus, test management, and rest of the chapters are actually smaller ones. So once we complete testing process and test management, actually things will move very, very fast. So okay, so today we will not talk about any new topics. We will just spend some time looking at typical questions I collected from the sample exam papers that's there on the istqb.org, and some textbooks here and there I looked and created this. Maybe I have having some 10 to 12 questions. Some of them are 1 mark questions and some of them are 3 mark questions. So as I told you, the exam will consist of 3 types of questions. One kind of very simple questions like your ISTQB foundation level kind of questions. They will carry 1 mark. There will be little more complex questions, especially testing your understanding of a K2 element of a syllabus. They will carry 2 marks. And then there are this really scenario based longish questions where you have to very carefully read back and forth, go to the case study before answering. Those are 3 mark questions. So we will cover all type of questions in today's chapter review. Okay, so let us start. So all of us will go along and read these questions and apply all the tricks and good practices to crack ISTQB exam, and then answer these questions. And in that process, let us reflect back on what all so far we learned about the testing process. Okay, so let's get going. The first question. So assume you're a test manager working on a project to create a programmable thermostat for home use to control central heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Okay, so it's a kind of embedded system you're building. Maybe it's an IoT system, and you are the test manager for it. This project is following a sequential life cycle model, specifically the V model. Okay, so testing starts early, testing, development, everything will be done sequentially, and you will do all levels of testing, unit level testing, integration level testing, system level testing, user acceptance level testing. So you will do in a little bit formal manner testing using V model. So that is your context as a test manager. You have to take it. Your test team is following a risk-based testing strategy augmented with a reactive testing strategy during test execution to ensure that key risks missed during risk analysis are caught. So from a strategy point of view for this project, you are using risk-based test strategy, but also you are going to use a reactive test strategy like your exploratory experience-based testing that typically you do in Agile during the test execution phase. Why you are doing it? In case you miss some important risks during your risk analysis process that you will do very early, to mitigate that problem, you are also deploying or employing exploratory testing so that you are catching every kind of risk. Okay, so now what is the question? Of the following statements below, I have 5 statements below. Identify all that are true about test plan. So you will be creating a test plan and you will talk about those things in the test plan. So out of 5, 3 are true, 2 are false with respect to your test plan for this context where you are a test manager. So whenever these kind of questions are there, 1 or 2 times read it because you have a lot of time the exam, but understand the context very clearly. That is very important. Sometimes in a long scenario, you have to go back and forth to the scenario because you cannot keep everything in your mind throughout the answering that question. But a small paragraphs like this, it's okay. But then most important is that we have to also understand the intent of the question. So of the following statements, identify all that are true about test plan. So planning issue based on this context, what will go into plan, what should not or will not be part of a plan. That is what you have to really do it. Okay, so the first statement is the test plan should include risk analysis early in the process. Yes or no? What do you think?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, because it is a V model kind of thing and you are using risk-based test strategy. So we have to do risk analysis very early in the process with right audience, people involved. Yes, this is a very important thing. But anyway, we will not jump to conclusion. This can be a potential true statement because he's telling that not one true statement, but there are many true statements. All true we can check. Okay. So the second one is the test plan should list the requirement specifications as an input to the risk analysis. What do you think? The test plan should list the requirement specification as an input to the risk analysis. True or false? So you are using a systematic approach, formal V model. So team will develop requirements and that has to become an input for your test plan, and also it has to become an input to your risk analysis. True or false? If your manager,
Yeah, true.
yeah, we will consider because that is how we will do risk analysis activity. So requirement specifications will are needed. Okay. Third one I am reading, the test plan should assign specific bugs to specific developers. Is it a concern at the time of planning for you for this context?
No.
Bugs and assigning them. This is actually test execution time, whatever activity. It is nothing to do with planning and not for this context. Okay, so this may not be a good answer. Okay, 1 and 2 are good. The test plan should discuss the integration of reactive test techniques into test execution. Okay, what do you say? Reactive means exploratory testing. Also, you have to consider while writing a test plan, or you have to incorporate this aspect into your test plan. Reactive means exploratory testing. So, in the context, they are telling that during test execution, you are planning to do reactive testing and you want to incorporate that into test plan. So, is it a good statement or not good statement? The fourth one, the test plan should discuss the integration of reactive test techniques, that is exploratory techniques, into test execution. Will you consider or not?
No.
No. Let us read it again. Your test team is following. I'm going back and reading the statement. Your test team is following a risk-based testing strategy, augmented, means you are supplementing with a reactive testing strategy during test execution. Why are you doing? To ensure that key risks missed during risk analysis are caught because of this process. So, should your plan integrate this reactive technique or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. It's a good statement because, as we told also in the syllabus, test managers, even in formal kind of contexts, they will actually incorporate some exploratory testing at the time of execution by inviting very experienced people on the domain. Okay, the domain knowledge of people will be very, very useful. Okay, so
Sir, excuse me. This is Ram Shankar. So there is a word called techniques, reactive test techniques. So how can we understand the word techniques there?
So reactive testing techniques. Reactive testing is a strategy. Means you are not doing very analytical kind of, like risk-based testing is a very analytical method of doing testing. Means you will very carefully analyze risks and you will build a lot of traceability to mitigate risks through test conditions to test cases, and you will monitor at the time of test execution. Those are called analytical strategies. Or for example, specification based testing is an analytical strategy. Means every requirement, every sub requirement, every user story, every use case, you will understand and create test conditions to cover those requirements, and to cover these test conditions you will write test cases like that. Those are all analytical test strategies. So there are techniques to do analytical testing. Basically, you write, apply black box, white box test design techniques and develop test cases. Now, reactive test strategy is what? You don't have all that things. There is no documents written properly. Okay. So you apply exploratory testing or experience-based testing as your recourse. So
Sir, what
what
could
are the
be
techniques?
techniques for exploration? What techniques can be used for exploratory testing in specific?
So actually, exploratory technique is one of the techniques of experience-based testing. First come to scripted testing and then experience-based testing. Means you are not basing your testing on requirements. You are not basing your testing on risks. Those are too analytical. Maybe let me write it here for you because you're asking. So I used risk-based. Okay. Okay. I used actually what is that requirement based. These two are actually analytical strategies. So very carefully you will analyze everything and build systematically all the things, and again trace backward forward to build your tests. So these analytical things, we use a lot of scripted testing techniques. Okay, scripted testing techniques like your
Right, sir.
boundary
Yeah.
value analysis, your equivalence class partitioning, your decision table testing, your use case testing, your whatever all pairs testing. These are all called scripted testing techniques. Okay. Now we have, these are analytical, but reactive. We are talking about reactive testing strategy, where you don't have requirements, you don't have too big risk analysis done, and based on that you are not building tests. You are doing based on your experience based. The testing is based on experience. These are called, it's called reactive strategy. In this, multiple techniques are there. One is actually exploratory testing technique. Okay. Then there is something called defect based testing techniques. So if you go through advanced test analyst syllabus, there will be a lot of discussion on these things, but management will not talk about it. Now exploratory, you're asking what is a technique. If you go back and look at exploratory technique, there is something called build test charters. Okay, that is called test charter, chartered exploratory testing. Okay, technique. I think James Bach has developed this technique, chartered exploratory testing. Okay, basically you go through the software and build a quick test charter, and then you build, you guess some things that some kind of guesses you make about the software, then build it. In case required, we'll talk later. Right now I'm not going to, but there is a very well established way of doing exploratory testing. Okay. And similarly, defect based also comes under experience based, where you actually collect all the defects in the similar software and you only test based on your knowledge of defects. That's called defect based. There is a technique called defect taxonomies people will build, and using those taxonomies people directly go and test the software. So both of these things will come under as experienced strategies. These are analytical strategies, the risk based, requirement based. Okay, so here in this question,
Got it. Thank you, sir.
okay, so in this question we are telling that manager is considering both, because they are following a V model based testing. So the manager is considering both. At the time of test execution, he wants to apply some experience based techniques. One of the experience based techniques is exploratory testing. And how exactly people will do exploratory testing? They apply, there are 2-3 techniques using which exploratory testing through chartered testing. There is a technique you can learn and apply, but it is coming as experience. So a good testers who have domain knowledge and some experience, they can do that. So the last point is the test plan should specify overall project team metrics used to determine bonuses. Will it be part of your test plan?
No, sir.
So what are the right things? The test plan, actually, this is the first one is good statement. The second one is also a good statement. The third one is not related to test plan. The fourth one, based on the context, it is one, and the fifth one is not. Okay, that is the way you have to select this answer. Anyway, we took a lot of time for the first question, but that is the answer. Okay. Okay, shall I move on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a straightforward question. This is 1 mark question. Sometimes they'll ask very simple questions also like this. That's good. Which of the following is a test document in which you would expect to find the preconditions to start executing a level of testing? Okay, the entry criteria for a particular level of testing. Out of the 4 documents below, which document you will write it? Test plan, test design specification, incident report, or project plan? Which one?
Test plan.
Are you able? Okay.
Test plan.
It's not a rocket science question. Maybe if you are confused about project plan and test plan, but because it is more about test level and testing. Anyway, in test plan, there is an entry criteria and there is exit criteria. Both we have to write. Entry criteria to start a particular level of testing, and exit criteria basically when can I stop testing. Okay, so anyway, your test plan is the answer. Again, yesterday I was talking about ISTQB and told fourth trick not to do that is to be over clever. So sometimes over clever people will choose project plan. There may be, it is too simple question. Maybe this examiner is tricking me, so I will not fall into the trap. So let me be over clever and I will choose project plan. Then you will go wrong. That's why in our tricks to crack ISTQB exam, the fourth thing I always tell is don't be too clever. Okay. Again, the third question, which of the following is the most likely reason a user might be included in test execution? So we are bringing experienced people into testing. Why? User is basically here is an experienced guy. So we are applying experience testing. Okay. So what is the reason? What is the most likely reason? What is that we want to leverage? That person's domain knowledge or their technical expertise or their testing expertise or their management expertise. Which one you will really
One.
exploit here?
Number one.
Domain knowledge.
Yeah, domain knowledge is the thing. Rest of the things are false. Okay. Again, because they are end users, they may not be knowing all this black box, white box, all this testing. They know the product very well, and that itself is useful for us. Okay. So you are correct. Okay. Let's go to this question. Okay. So this is a little bit longish scenario. We have to read it. So I'll read it for you. So you also read along with me. So you are the manager of a bank's quality assessment group in charge of independent testing for banking applications. So you are holding that position. Okay. You have just concluded a project to implement an integrated system that will use 3 off-the-shelf systems to manage a bank's account receivable system. So you're implementing an integrated system consisting of 3 different products or 3 off-the-shelf systems. Okay, together all 3 will actually help you manage your bank's account receivable system. So that is the thing you are now overseeing this project. Okay, so during this project you found that one of the vendor's systems, while comprising approximately the same amount of functionality and of roughly the same complexity as the other 2 systems, had significantly more defects. So basically you outsourced this, you are managing your bank's systems. So out of these 3 vendors, one of the vendor of one of the COTS system actually, while functionality complexity is the same as other 2 products, this particular vendor systems we found that they are having more defects than other 2 systems. Okay, that is what you came to know while reviewing, and you are the manager, you can do anything. Okay, you have all the power. So making no assumptions other than one based on the information provided here. So the information we are providing here is only that yes, all 3 are equally complex and similar kind of systems, but a system from one vendor has more defects, there are significantly more defects than others. That is the only information I am giving. You don't have any other information as a manager. Okay, so based on that, which of the following is a reasonable improvement to the process, to the test process for subsequent projects involving this vendor? So subsequent projects, when you are involving this vendor, so what are the actions will improve your testing process based on this information only? Okay, and you have all the power in the world to do anything with this vendor. Okay, so you have to find which one is the best one. So first one is impose retroactive financial penalties on this vendor for the number of bugs delivered on this project. Okay, will you do that? Because this vendor has a lot of defects occurred. Will you put some penalties as a manager based on this information?
Not likely.
Yes or no? Yeah. Though you
No.
have a lot of power, we enjoy that power, but with the given information, and you are more interested in testing process thing, not rest of the things. Okay, this may not be, this is too draconian action by a test manager. Based on other reasons, other context, you may do this. But let's say your vendor has actually outsourced it to some another small player without telling you, and that is why these quality issues are coming, and you came to know about that. Then you may do this. You may take some strict action, but not with this information available. You will not do that. Okay. The second one is perform an acceptance test for all systems received, all three systems, with particular rigor for this vendor. Whenever this vendor's system is coming for acceptance test, do it with more rigorously, do it strictly, so that you will understand. So will you apply this kind of step to improve your test process?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, potentially, maybe, because at least this will actually first de-risk, because you experienced in the previous phase this. Okay, then you apply a more rigorous acceptance test process, and then it might lead you to understand better what, why, how is happening. Okay, but anyway, we will not jump to conclusion. We'll read other things also. Cancel the contract with the vendor and put it on an industry blacklist, almost like your first step only you want to do. Do you want to do that? You want to exercise your power like that? May not be. Okay.
No,
Then
sir.
the fourth, okay, no. So require the vendors developers to attend training to improve their ability to write quality code. Will you do this? So out of
No,
these
sir.
four, which one will you do first? So you don't know anything. Quality of code is the issue. We don't know, and there is no way you will ask to developers of the vendor to attend for a training. That is not your responsibility. So the best answer is
To
the
perform acceptance test.
yes. So that is the best answer. Okay. So let's move on. So this is our fifth question. Okay. Again, these are 1 mark questions. Okay. Which two of the following factors? Two, basically, two is in caps. So we, out of these 5 factors, 2 factors we have to identify. What is those factors? Those indicate most that detailed test conditions should be specified for system testing. Okay. So for system testing, you have decided to go for a detailed test conditions. Okay. What benefits? Okay. What factors actually indicate most the detailed conditions should be specified? Which factors based on which you have decided to apply detailed test conditions for system testing? Okay, that is the question. First, we have to understand the intent of the question. Basically, the factors that will drive for choosing a detailed test conditions. That is the syllabus that we covered. From that, this question is coming. So we have to understand that. Okay. So the first one is test basis is changing frequently. Means test basis means either your requirement documents or user stories or use cases, they are changing very frequently. That is why I have to build detailed test conditions. What do you say?
Yes.
Based on what we covered, is it yes? Think again. If something is changing frequently and you built based on the changing thing a very detailed document, when this changes, your detailed document also has to change. It will increase your maintenance effort.
Right.
So
No.
so basically we told that if your test basis or any documents based on which your test conditions are done, if they're frequently changing, don't go for detailed ones, because it will unnecessarily increase your maintenance effort. Okay, because you have to always keep your detailed test conditions in consistent with changing requirements or changing user stories. Okay, so we told, so keep that in mind. It may be no actually. Okay, but we are not jumping to conclusion, but that is what we reviewed in the syllabus. Okay, test basis is of low quality. Okay, your test basis, your requirements, your user stories, your use cases, they are not very well detailed way written. They are written in a very informal way. Okay, so in that kind of situation, if you write very detailed test conditions, will it help? What did we talk about these factors?
Yes, sir, it will help because we'll get more clarity
Yeah, so yes,
on the
you are
points
right.
which were not clear.
Absolutely. In fact, we discussed that if the test basis is not good, maybe if you have time and good team, spend some good time and expertise of the team and build very detailed concrete test conditions, so that this will become a reference document for everyone, developers and testers and everyone, so that you can capture the most of the software's requirements in the test condition itself. That's what we told. So potentially this factor is a good factor. Then the third one, test conditions are used for management milestone presentations. Anyway, this doesn't sound good at all to me. Anybody, it sounds good?
No.
No. Okay. Test design and test execution is outsourced. So you are not doing, you have found a vendor and asked the vendor to do. So if a vendor is there, do you ask vendor to do a little bit more detailed or informally do it? What will you do?
Detail.
We will ask for detail, because we want, because vendors will be there for the duration and they go. When they go, at least some good detailed test conditions are there. So that may be a potential good statement for factors for this. Domain experts are available for consultation during test design. This factor, based on that, you will decide to do more detailed one. In fact, in our when we talked about this topic, we told actually if you have good domain experts are there in your testing and they are going to support, then we told that you can deal with low level detailed test conditions. Okay, so that is how we talked. So what are the best answers here? Test basis is changing is not good. Test basis of low quality is a good one. Test conditions are used for management milestones presentation is not a good one. Test design and test execution is outsourced is a good answer. Domain experts are available for consultation during test design. Actually, if that kind of good thing is there in your team, you can save time by keeping them low level. No need to unnecessarily put detail level, because low level is always good. You will vary the workflow, you will vary the data and do a better thing. So 2 and 4 are the right answers. Are you okay with this answer?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So keep on thinking. In case you thought something else, then you can go back to syllabus, review it. That way you can, because that is very important, because whatever said and done, we have to go ISTQB way and solve these problems if you want to crack the exam. Okay. Next question. Again, which two?
Srikanth here. Hello.
Yeah, go on. Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. So I have a question here actually. So basically, most of the projects we are following waterfall and agile methodology. So following agile methodology, we are starting the testing in the early stage itself. So which means we, upon the design, we started writing the test cases, and based upon the test cases, we will execute it in the later stage. but
Okay.
there are so many frequent changes happening in the project. So
Yeah.
because of this, whatever test cases we have written, we have to change all the test cases, which is
Yes.
almost writing like writing from the scratch. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
basically, what do you suggest, like writing the test cases when we are following agile and waterfall model in the early stage is the best practice, or in the later stage changing it? So just wanted to
Yeah.
suggestion here.
Okay. So basically, when you are doing agile and also everything is always changing. Okay. So
Yeah.
we talked about test cases. At how do we develop test cases or even test condition? But you talked about test cases, so I'm talking about it. So we told
Mhm.
you can do it in two ways: concrete test cases, and we can leave them at a logical level. Okay. Let's say your e-commerce uh, checkout process you want to test. In a concrete test, you will write go log into the page, then in the database you keep some products, then order line item, line item, line item, line item, then check out, then calculate whatever, verify something. You write in a very detailed way a test case where action, and you will hard code the data also. Okay, what data you will give, hard code it. These are called concrete test cases. Okay.
Mhm.
Logical test case is that I will check, test checkout functionality. Okay. With some parameters. So this is a concrete test case where hard coded data you have put, and logical test case is a very high level thing that I want to do when software is ready. So now when things are changing, this will become useless
Yeah.
actually. Developing test case
Correct.
like this will be useless. So you have to always build it this way, so that again build a very good knowledge with respect to this workflow, this data, so that unnecessarily you don't waste time. Anyway, something that is going to change, there is no point actually writing and discarding it. The time can be used to learn these things better, build some ideas in your brain better, and maybe check others who have done this testing and found some good defects. Every e-commerce system will have this common checkout thing. Then somewhere a lot of defects have been published around e-commerce site defects. So
Yeah.
the time you gained, you can spend to learn that, so that whenever you are testing this, you have tested it in a better way. Okay. Hope it
Okay.
helps.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So let us move to the next question. So which two of the following metrics are best suited to be included in a test progress report for unit test execution? So this is about metrics. This is about unit test execution that will go into a progress report. Okay. So again, that context, intent of the question you have to understand: unit test execution, metrics that will go into a progress report. Okay. So the first one is planned versus actual coverage achieved. Will you include this or not for as a metric for unit testing?
Yes, sir.
This is actually the best one, because unit testing is all about conducting white box testing and achieve based on the risk, either statement coverage or decision coverage, or again within that there are multiple things within decisions, multiple condition combination testing coverage, and then there is something called linear code sequence and jump coverage. Variety of white box techniques and their coverage things based on risk people can put. So that's a good metric to collect for unit test execution. So potentially good answer. Defect detection percentage of unit test. Okay. You know what is defect detection? Anyway, in metrics we'll talk about it. But basically defect detection percentage is that defects found during a phase, and that is unit testing. So let's say defects found during unit test divided by defects found during unit test plus all the future phases, like defects found in IT plus system test plus UAT, like that. Then it will give the defect removal efficiency of this phase. It's okay kind of metric, but usually these are done in the higher levels of testing, this kind of metric. Okay, so at the time of unit testing, this metric may not be that useful. Okay, number of test conditions identified, again not that good metric. Planned versus actual defects reported, this can be a better, because we have to do two, best one, planned versus actual defects reported. At the time of execution, unit test execution, you told that this much of defect per kloc is my target. Okay, so how many defects per kloc I want to find, this is my planned one, and how many defects per kloc in fact I found. Okay, that will give a better progress measurement. Okay, that is a potentially good answer. Unit test time versus integration test time is not so good answer. So what are the best answers? Two answers. The first one, this is okay but not useful for a low level testing. This is too easy measure, not a useful metric, because two only we have to do. This is a much better metric, and this is not a relevant metric for unit test execution. So this is the answer according to me. Hope you also thought that way only, or anybody has any different view on this.
Sir, excuse me. So can we actually plan for the defects?
Yes. So typically, I don't know, now in organizations they are doing, there is a metric called EDD. Okay, EDD is estimated remaining
Defect density. Okay.
defect density, ERDD, but EDD they call. Okay, defect density. I'm not writing completely. Let me put here again. So we are calling about EDD. Okay, so imagine you are a highly process oriented organization with good teams. Okay, means you are applying all the agile process in a good way, or whatever sequential process in a good way. And typically, let's say, I don't know how many of you really care and know now, but let's say you are level 3 on a CMM. I don't know, nowadays nobody talks a lot after agile has come, but what it really I'm telling is that you are a team which knows software engineering very well, and a good quality team members are there. Okay, so that's why I'm telling CMMI level means everything apply process, you know properly how to develop software. That kind of team, let's say they build 1,000 lines of code. Okay, and code, basically a good developer looked at the requirement, looked at the code specification, and developed whatever Java or C# code, 1,000 lines of code that developer has done with his or her intelligence and compiled. Okay, okay, so even in a level 3 organization where a lot of good documentation, structured process is done, there is one guy, I don't know whether you remember this guy's name, who actually invented and made the software engineering, software companies in India great actually. His name is Sir Watts Humphrey. He died. Otherwise, he's a head of Software Engineering Institute at Pittsburgh University. Okay, he came up with the CMM model. So he made a lot of empirical studies and told that a level 3 organization, once they develop 1,000 lines of code, and only they did is code and compile, means code is compiling, no errors in compiling. Okay, it's compiled. Then he told minimum 20 defects will be there in this code. So people will start with EDD of 20 defects. Even level 3 organizations, forget about level 2, level 1, no process, green teams, it will be bad. But based on a lot of empirical study, Sir Watts Humphrey came up with this kind of metric. Then he told organizations now will not deliver this code after compilation. No company will give it to customer after this. After this, they will do unit test. After unit test, they will do integration test, or in agile, whatever you call. Then they will do a system test, they will do a UAT. So many more testing they will do. Now, let's say after UAT, as a company, I want to be sure that I want to deliver my code by the time UAT, my EDD should be less than 2 defects per KLOC. This is my target I have put in my test strategy or test policy. So after code compiling, I have 20 defects. So if I have to go to less than 2, during this process, I have to at least find 18 defects. Okay. Out of these 18 defects, which process will find most of the defects? Typically, unit test will find most of the defects. We can put that I will at least find 14 of them here. Then here I will do 3, and these phases I will find 1 or 2. Okay. So that will give you an ability to plan. If I have 5,000 lines of code, okay, so if I have to achieve this less than 2 defect per KLOC, and my unit testing is the best process, highly efficient process, where I want to find most of the defects, I can tell that every 1014, so I can tell that my goal is to find 70. That's what I'm telling, planned. Then let's say I found 60. That's what, this is planned, this is my actual. So mature product company organization, like all these metrics, I used to use as a test manager when I worked for a company called Born. It was an ERP product company. Now it's called Infor, but at the time it was called Born company. So I was product test manager. So this metric, EDD metric, was very, very important metric for our go, no go decisions. So we have to establish to the management that whatever we talked, less than 2 defects, so we have to show them every stage how many defects have been found. Because if anybody tells that I will find all of them in system test and UAT, that is actually wrong. Management will not believe. These are inefficient processes. Unit test is a highly efficient process done by right people at the right time using right techniques. That is why that is a very good process to find and correct defects. So product companies are very focused on their code quality, and that's why they do it. Hope I answered your question, but I don't know nowadays how many people are really focusing on that, but we used to do this long back. That was almost 15-20 years back, I'm telling.
Makes sense, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the answer. Okay. Simple questions, but actually in this soon we'll get into a very long questions. Let us little move fast. Another 10-20 minutes we have. So okay, which two of the following are reasons why specifying detailed test conditions? Again, detailed test conditions only we are telling. Here we are not talking about factors. Here we are talking about benefits for a project. So the intent of the question is your understanding of why detailed test conditions, but not factors that will contribute to decide on detailed conditions, but it is benefit for a project. Okay. So we talked about it. So the first one is to help identify defects early in the project life cycle. By making an attempt to write detailed test conditions, will we find defects early or not?
No.
No, but we talked about it. By analyzing the test basis, we told we will find any missing requirements, any ambiguous requirements, any untestable requirements, any inconsistent requirements. We talked about, if we know at the time of preparing detailed test conditions and go back to business analysis and tell that, then actually you can prevent defects. That's what we told. So this is a right statement. Okay, but we'll check that. To improve the quality of unit test design, is it a benefit? They are nowhere related, so it cannot be a good answer. Because detailed mapping of test cases to the test base is required, this is not a benefit. Okay, we only want to talk about benefits. So first one sounds like a benefit, and truly it's a benefit. Then because the requirement documents are of low quality. Okay, again, if the requirement documents are of low quality, we talked, it's a factor and it's almost a benefit also, potentially okay answer, to remove the need for designing test cases. Okay, okay, we'll see. Actually, only two is basically because the requirement documents are of low quality and to help identify defects early in the project life cycle. Okay, so again, if you are a little bit confused about this, what you have to do is that go back to these test conditions and level of detail. There are two things, factors and benefits and advantages and disadvantages of doing both. So questions will come in those kind of sections of syllabus, and be as clear in your mind as possible, so that again these are 1 mark questions, so you are not going wrong. Now we are having a little bit longish questions. Okay, so these are basically scenario based questions. In fact, this scenario we already read in our course, so I'm reading it. All of you again bring back in your minds. So I'll read it very fast, but we have done this already. So assume that you are working for an ambitious startup company. Okay, you are a test manager there. So your company is creating a system that will provide customized loyalty and rewards program for small and medium sized companies selling to their customers on the web. So basically you are creating a cloud based service about loyalty and rewards that your customers can use coming to your web store. So your customer companies, they enroll themselves on your system's web store. Okay, and this allows your company, your customers, to create customized buttons on their websites. Okay, that let their customers enroll in the company's loyalty and reward program. Meaning on their, they are not building the functionality, they are using your cloud service to give this facility to their customers. So basically, once they have this functionality, each subsequent purchase earns points, and both companies and their customers can manage the program. For example, to determine number of points required to receive a free product or service. So if I'm an e-commerce company, I will go to your company and web store, I'll pay money and put a button there, and somebody clicks that button, it will redirect to my website. There I can do my whole enrollment process and manage that whole process with my customers. Only for that service I have to pay you. That is the software you are developing. Okay, we talked about already this case, I'm only repeating again. So your employer's marketing staff are heavily promoting the system, offering aggressive discounts on the first year's fees to sign up new companies. So your marketing working very hard. The marketing materials state that the service will be highly reliable and extremely fast for companies and their customers. So whatever marketing has to do, they're doing, they're promoting in a big way. At this time, the requirements are complete and development of the software has just begun. We talked about it earlier also. And the current schedule will allow companies and their customers to start enrolling in 3 months. So already your test manager and your project is started, and 3 months you will make it available. Anyway, your employer intends to use cloud computing resources to host this service, and all this we have studied, will not bother. Now let us go to the question. So based on that scenario, you have to keep it in your mind and you have to answer this question. These are the scenario based questions that typically will be asked in your exam. They will carry 3 marks. So carefully, whenever this case study becomes a little bit complex, while answering, while looking at each point, to in your mind clearly tell whether it's correct or wrong, you have to keep going back to your case study if it is too long and you could not hold in your mind all the case study. So they will take time to answer these questions, but you have a lot of time, so don't need to be in a worry that hey, time is gone. So I have to do fast. No need. You have 225 minutes to answer. Okay, these whatever 65 questions I think. So don't worry. So anyway, let us read the question now. Using scenario 2, assume that the project has completed the initial release. So already release is done and the system has been in use by companies and their customers for a month now. Already customers are using it. Okay. While developing, your team used blended risk-based, requirement-based and reactive testing strategy. So a combination of risk-based and requirement-based, there's analytical and reactive, all strategies they applied. Okay, keep that in mind. In the quality risk analysis, while doing quality risk analysis to identify test conditions and develop test cases, so your risk analysis team told that button customization was assessed as the lowest risk area, whatever lowest risk, 1 let us call, while the enrollment functionality was assessed at the highest risk area. So button customization 1 and enrollment functionality 5. Okay, these are the functionalities. Now on that context, you are now implementing a retrospective. So now project is done, so you invited all the team and you are doing test closure activity. As part of that, you are doing a project retrospective, and this retrospective focus is on the testing work and lessons learned. Okay, which 3 of the following areas should be considered in this retrospective? So within this context, which 3 you will consider to discuss or understand better in this retrospective for your testing work as a test manager? So you have to keep that in context and answer this question. So again, which 3? So out of these 7, 3 are correct. Okay. The first one, delivering the known defects and failed tests to the system support team. Is it a issue for your retrospective, delivering the known defects and failed tests to your test support team? Yes or no? No, this is basically test closure activity, but in that closure, completion and actually delivering things back to support, maintenance, whoever. So this cannot be a good answer, definitely. Okay. Identifying enrollment problems that are affecting companies or their customers. So you are doing postmortem or retrospective, and your risk identified is enrollment is high risk, button customization is low risk, but around that you will be focusing more. Okay, based on the case. So second point, is it an important point to consider in your retrospective or not? Identifying enrollment problems that are affecting companies on their or their customers. It's a good point. Okay, consider that. We'll come to finally. Okay, then third one is deciding if the project plan included all relevant project risks that affected delivery to early adopter companies. What do you think about this point?
Seems to be a good point, sir.
Seems to be a good point, but this is not really a retrospective topic for this context, where the context is testing, and within that functional aspect of buttons and enrollment, which marketing has told highly available, reliable and all that. Okay, within the, again, third point is a good point, definitely, but if we are doing general project retrospective, okay, but this is more of a test retrospective, so it is a little bit question mark. Okay, at this moment, at least for me. Okay, comparing actual tests completed against the estimated number of tests for enrollment, button customization and point management. Okay, how many actual tests completed against estimated number? Did we take the risk properly, put some good effort in a proportionate manner, and will you consider that aspect in the retrospective for this context? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, potentially yes, sir. Yeah. Then determining the low level of detail required for no, not low level. Determining the level of detail required for enrollment, customization, and point management test cases. Okay, is it a post-mortem or retrospective issue, or this you will consider somewhere else as a manager? Actually, this is the test analysis, test design, implementation time, whether what level of detail I will do based on risk. Okay, so this again not a very good thing for retrospective, because the context is retrospective and the context is about that risk area and you are talking about that. So 2 we got. Evaluating whether significant problems have been reported by users in button customization. You will do or not? Because button customization is also one of the area you are talking, though low risk area, but in a post-mortem already people are using. Maybe you will evaluate, hope everything is going well, kind of thing. So potentially this is another answer. Let us look at measuring the coverage of the enrollment requirements and reporting that the project that to project and business stakeholders. Measuring the coverage of the enrollment requirements and reporting that to project and business stakeholders. This is basically when you write a test summary report, you may write it. It's not a post-mortem time issue. So again, if you look at it, every point seems to be okay, but adjusting it to the context and the question that is being asked will become critical. That is where you have to look at these questions again and again, and so that you are not going wrong. Okay, so that is the answer. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so now I have some more questions on another scenario. Okay, so let us look at that scenario. This scenario we haven't talked. You have to orient yourself to these scenarios now. So I'll read it little slowly. This scenario: you are the test manager for a software company, SmartPick. Your company name is SmartPick, and you are the test manager. What does your company do? It provides a mortgage comparison product, and the product name is Mortgage Picker. Okay, your company is SmartPick, Mortgage Picker, because these are new names. Put it in your mind. Okay, my product is Mortgage Picker, because a lot of story will be written now. Okay, and this product Mortgage Picker is used primarily by financial advisors, either working independently or for financial institutions such as banks and building societies. So it's a mortgage advisory company having a product called Mortgage Picker. It's a product company, and you are the test manager. This product, which includes a complex financial calculation engine, has been in use for a number of years and is regarded within the industry as efficient and secure with good performance. So it is a very well established product, lot of respectable product of your company, SmartPick, Mortgage Picker. It's a good financial calculation engine which other people, banks and other building societies, they use this engine to do their services to their customers, especially with respect to this mortgage comparisons and all. So far clear? Let's move. Okay, you are test manager for that. Now we are talking about your current project. So your current project is to develop and integrate a customized version of Mortgage Picker. So a new customization you are building on Mortgage Picker for a large financial services company called Your Money. So your customer, Your Money, wanted to buy this product, but they asked you to customize for them. So you are working on that project, build those customizations and integrate it within their company's, Your Money's organization. And you are using double V model, sequential life cycle, double V model. Hope anyway it's an extension of V model, but it's a formal model. It's a one kind of sequential model, not agile. Keep that in mind. We are not talking about agile here. Okay, at least for this project. Customization will focus on some significant tailoring of the user interface to meet Your Money's business processes. So you are going to integrate your mortgage picker in your money's business process, and the customization involves a lot of user interface changes and making it good for them. Okay, keep that in mind, because we'll answer at least 4 questions based on this scenario. Okay, the financial services company has an existing organizational test strategy that you have agreed to adhere to. So your customer, that is your money company, has a very well established test strategy, and you told your customer that we will adhere to whatever test strategy you told us. Okay, and this test strategy is heavily risk based. Okay, and it is needed in this kind of industry. Risks are very high, so it is heavily risk based test strategy. So there are some points there in your test strategy. Again, you have to understand them, keep it in your mind carefully, because a lot of questions will happen based on this strategy, and you have to come back and forth to answer questions correctly. Okay, so let's go. The extracts from the strategy include: 1, all software must comply with Financial Services Authority FSA regulatory standards. So it's a heavily regulated industry, and it's basically whatever you do in testing, it will have to have a trail, and there is a compliance regulatory constraint on this project. Okay, FSA regulations. 2, the company's lightweight risk management process. The company, your money, has a risk management process. A lot of risk management tools, methodologies are there, so they have their own. Okay, will be used on all projects where risks are assessed using qualitative impact and likelihood to arrive at risk levels A through D. So we have to use their company's risk management process, and that will follow a qualitative. For every item you look at, you will identify 2 things qualitatively: what is the impact and what is the likelihood. Based on that, you will assess the risk level or risk value. Okay, and basically using that, you will come up with 4 levels of risk, A through D. D is actually highest risk, A is the lowest risk. Keep that in mind. Anywhere you see risk, D means highest, then C, then B, then A. Okay, then the test strategy further talking about code inspections must be used for all components with a risk level of D. So any item with a risk D, there, that code component will have to go through code inspections. There is a formal code inspection methodology called FAGN inspection, which takes a lot of time, but which gives a lot of value. So a lot of money will be spent, but they told only risk level D should be used, must be used. Okay, 4th one is security testing must be applied at all test levels, because it's a double V model. So there will be unit level, there will be integration level, there will be system level, there will be UAT level. Every level security testing must be applied at all levels to all products, modules of software components with a risk level of C or higher. Means anything C or D of whatever modules, you have to apply security testing unit to system to acceptance level. Okay, keep that in mind, C or higher. Then for performance testing, the strategy is telling the performance testing must be applied at all test levels to all products components with a risk level of D or higher. So anything D, anyway, there is no higher components or test levels, performance testing has to be planned and done. Okay, that is what they told. So C and D for security testing, D for performance testing, and again regulatory things. These are the 5 we have talked, but more things are there in test strategy. That's why it takes time. Okay, so the 6th item they told unit testing must achieve a minimum of 100% decision testing coverage, because they know the code quality is very important. Every code in the software, not allocated to particular risk level, everything will have to be tested 100% decision testing coverage. So there are techniques: condition combination testing, simple decision testing to many things are there. So they told 100% you have to achieve. Okay. There is no, every risk element has to be done. And again, that is only for unit level testing. Seventh strategy item is experience-based techniques should be considered on all projects as a supplementary approach during system testing. From system testing level onwards, not only scripted testing, you have to bring in experienced people and use their services to test it. System testing, unit testing, not unit, user acceptance level. And eighth, they told boundary value analysis shall be used as a minimum black box technique. If you don't use any techniques, minimum you use black box techniques for all test levels. Unit 2, UAT, wherever you are testing the input forms, where fields are there, they are taking values, apply BVA. Okay. And other white box or black box techniques may be used as deemed appropriate for each project. So the strategy is mandating BVA, but other techniques you decide. That's what they're telling. Okay. Ninth, all high-level product risks, that is C and above, C and D, should be regression tested. So whatever tests you created for any module, wherever the functionality is having C or D kind of risk level, you have to pull all of them and keep it as a regression test suite. For future regression testing, you have to use risk level C or above. Clear? So 10th one, separate test plans must be produced by each project for security testing and performance testing. So because this may have many sub modules and sub projects, every project has to really come up with a separate security plan and separate performance test plan. So these are the 10 strategy items. So little bit information overload will happen, but take time, read them, and while answering each question, come back to this, because anyway in your exam paper, this study whole thing will be written, you have to keep reading it. But I wrote only once for all the 4 questions, because I'm using for 4 questions the same case, but I'm extending the case now. So scenario 3 you have understood now. Okay, so using scenario 3, the first release for the Your Money project is to deliver number of major code components with risk levels having been assessed that ranged from B to D. Okay, A, B, C, D. So B, C, D risk levels. A first release is being done with major code components. So you have risk levels of those code components somewhere between B, C, D. Detailed component specifications were agreed during low-level design. So while low-level design, because they are using WV model, before writing code, a very detailed technical specification for code will be written. Okay. You have been asked, you are the test manager, you have been asked by the development manager to help agree the approach for unit testing. So this question is only about unit testing, and you are helping your development manager around unit testing. Okay, so that is the context scenario you have. It's in mind now. What project stage you are in now, you know now. Okay, and unit testing, and you are helping your development manager. Okay, which of the following activities / techniques should be used to support unit testing? Choose 3 options. So what activities techniques will you recommend to your development manager based on your test strategy, based on your context, and based on this particular situation in the question? So a number of major code components with risk levels having been assessed that range from B to D are there now. You have to help your development manager. Okay, so inspections on all code components, will you recommend that?
Yes, sir.
So we have to go back always. Is there anything written on thing? So all software must, anyway, let us read. Code inspections must be used for all components with a risk level of D. That is my strategy saying. Here what it is saying, inspections on all code components. So here I have B, C, D risks. So I don't need to really do as far as my strategy goes, I have to do only for D, because inspections are very expensive, time consuming. Okay, if this, I would have advised my development manager, inspections do only for code whose risk is D. Okay, so will you do it or not? Should we do based on your strategy or not?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
So I think in this context, we may not suggest, I believe.
Yeah, because strategy is telling only for the highest risk. Okay, so no. Creation of detailed test conditions. Will you recommend that? So basically low level testing like unit testing and all, in our syllabus when we covered, the low level detailed conditions will not be there. Directly
Yes.
use code specifications and start white box testing. The test condition is more for the higher level things. So this is not a good recommendation. We have to identify 3. Okay, creation of automated unit tests for all user stories. What do you say?
For all user stories might be expensive as well. So
yeah, not only that, actually this is a very formal kind of model where they are using double V model. There is no agile in this, so there will be no real user stories also.
Yeah.
Okay, this is more the old type of project. Okay, so that's why it's not a good recommendation. Boundary value analysis to test numerical ranges. Will you do it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
because they told for all levels, for all risks, minimum you apply BVA for numerical values, and as deemed fit you do other techniques. So this is a potential advice I will give my development manager. Security testing on selected components. So security
Yes.
testing has to be done for what C and D, I think that is what has been told. So
Yes, sir.
yes, we have to do that. Multiple condition testing on selected components. So we told decision
Yes.
testing coverage is important, so we have to do that. Short exploratory test sessions at the end of each day. This is again
Yes.
no exploratory testing, it's now agile process here. Okay, everything is very formal kind of context is there. Okay, so you may not recommend because there is no agile kind of thing. Short exploratory test sessions, and what the strategy told is that you apply experience based testing, system test onwards. Okay, so based on that also this is not a right answer. So this is how we answer. So these are the typical 3-mark questions which will make you go and forth, back and forth. So yes, you have to clearly understand, contextualize the scenario and apply whatever you learned from the syllabus. Sometimes based on our work experience, we may actually go in a wrong way, because our work experience tells us about life, testing life in one way. ISTQB tells something different way and sometimes opposite way. So to clear this exam, you have to come back to this context always, ISTQB context. Hope you are getting it. So let us move, because we have taken more time. I hope the time is okay now. We are going little more time. Those who are still there, it may take another 10-15 minutes. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, sure.
Because I will complete these questions. Okay, this is again a further longish question about the same scenario. So here, using scenario 3, okay, same your current scenario, you are to develop a test execution schedule. Now you are project manager, you are working with your test analysts and building a test execution schedule for security, performance, and regression testing. That is the plan you are making now for the first release of the your money project. Okay, that is the context now. You have to build your test execution schedule for security, performance, and regression testing. Whenever you think about test execution schedule, there are some constraints, there are risks, and based on that actually you will adjust when to do what order, which one will be done first, second, third, that priority. Okay, so basically the constraints we are telling here, test environments are to be built in the following order. Okay, for every test there is a need of a separate test environment. For regression testing, regression test environment. Security testing, security test environment. For performance testing, performance test environment. So for each type, the sequencing must reflect first the environment availability. So environment availability is a critical dependency constraint is there as a manager while planning this execution schedule. And the second is the risk level order. So I have some modules within this that are ready now for which I have to plan test execution. Okay, so they have some risks also. We'll talk about these modules. Okay, regression testing can only, again, another constraint, though regression test environment will be created first, but regression testing can only be done after all other tests have been run and bug testing has been completed. So first security testing, performance testing is done, bugs are fixed, then only regression testing will be done. Again, I have 3 modules. The release comprises of the following modules or products. One is, first module is capture application details, highest risk. View application details, B, it is not that high. Then create mortgage scheme, this is C, this is higher than VAD. Okay, so CAD, VAD, CMS are the modules with relative risk levels. We have to keep it in mind whenever you are trying to answer. You have to get back if you don't remember, or on your rough sheet while answering you put those things so that your brain functions, because it's hard to keep everything in the mind. Okay, anyway, to make it simple for you, I put everything here again, applications and their risk levels. And we know test environments, regression environment will come first. Again, I have to go back. Security comes second, performance, but regression test can be completed only after bug fixes are done. And the relative things is, my capture application details is D, create mortgage scheme is C, and view applicant details is B, risk levels. So all these things, there is a risk level, there is a constraint, and there is a test environment order in which things are happening. Based on that, what I have to come is that I have 4 options here. What will be your test execution order? Which one, which module, which test will you do first, then followed by the next? So the correct order you have to identify. Okay, so how do we answer this question? So basically they're given some RST, UVW, XYZ for each module under performance, regression, and security. So here they have given that XZ, RTU, whatever. Now we have to go one by one, compare the risk levels, compare the other constraints, and answer this question for the order. Okay, that is the only way to answer this question. So we have to start with the first one, X. What is X really? This is CAD. CAD is what? Risk level is high. So X. And security, though regression environment will be done later. So first, unless I do this, I cannot do. So X should be the first. Absolute, no doubt about it, because it is having D and it is about risk testing of CAD. Okay, so because that is the highest priority. So but unfortunately in the 4 answers, 3 doesn't start with X, but we can exclude 3, but there are 3 which are starting with X. So let us go with the next one, Z. What is that? CMS. CMS is the next level risk. Again, it is security. Okay, because from a risk point of view, this application is the second, and security is more important. C and D, according to our strategy, have to be done. Okay, performance is only D basically, but security gets higher priority even for C level risk. So correct, Z also is correct, but then all 3 has Z also. We can't say anything. Then let's go to R. So basically we are looking at the first one and trying to exclude. and we are checking whether the correct priority is there or not. Now R is what? R is CAD performance. CAD is cap D, and performance we told in the test strategy, any component with D must go for performance testing, and that has come. And because anyway it has to be tested, then only regression can happen, though environment is the constraint is there, but still priority wise I have to plan for R only next. Okay, then so again X, Z, R is correct sequence. So 1 and 2 are there. So now 3 and 4 can be excluded. Okay, based on our thinking so far. So the answer lies between either 1 or 2. Now basically when I look at T and compare with others, T and R, T and U, which is higher priority, based on that I can answer this question. So what is the T here? T is performance test of CMS. Performance test of CMS C. Actually we told D risk only will do performance testing. The strategy is telling that. Okay, so this may not be the right after R, but let us look at U. What is U? Regression of CAD. Now security of CAD, security of performance of CAD is done. Okay, and this is the D priority. So then I will go for the highest priority regression test. So U. So in the A answer, U is there. T, but whereas in 2 answer, with the immediately after R, U is there. So immediately after R, T is wrong. Immediately after R, U is right actually. So like that we can come to this answer. So basically this kind of questions will take a little bit of time. They are not complex. Okay. Only thing is that you have to at a time review a lot of information, go back and forth and solve this puzzle. Okay. These are typical exam paper. Okay. Some more questions. Quickly I will go through now. So basically the same scenario I am talking now. Using the scenario 3, your team has designed test conditions for the following requirements, which has been assigned risk level D. So whatever they have done, one requirement that is D level risk. Okay. Then they have come up with test conditions. Okay. High level test conditions. Mortgage applicants details will only be stored in the mortgage picker customer database when the following rules are all met. This is the test condition. Basically requirement when applicants details will only be stored in the mortgage picker in the customer database when these following 3 rules are all met. Okay, so that is the test condition. What are the conditions? Applicant age must be between 18 and 65 inclusive. It's a numerical field. So 18 to 65 is allowed for age. Applicant must have a positive credit rating with Experian. There yes or no dictates whether we stored in the customer database or not. Applicant must be resident in the United Kingdom. Then only it will be allowed, otherwise it will disallow. These are the test conditions. Okay. Now you have reviewed the following test conditions 1 to 4. Okay, these are the 1 to 4 test conditions. It came as a test manager for your review by your team. The team has completed and gave it for your review. Okay, and you have to ensure that they address the requirement and also adhere to the objectives defined in your money's test strategy. So test strategy risk level D, whatever they asked, we have to think about it. So which one will you reject out of these 4 test conditions for this whatever specification that your team came up with, given your test strategy? Which one will you reject? Okay, that is the thing. Okay, the first test condition is to demonstrate that applicants' details stored on the mortgage picker database cannot be accessed other than by authorized personnel. One test condition they came. Okay, basically it is a security test condition they put. Is it a good one or bad one? Will you reject or accept it? And it is a D level risk.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, accept, sir.
Yeah, we will accept this. So will not reject. So it is a wrong. Basically, if you here in this question, we have to identify the one you reject, not the one you accept. Okay. To demonstrate that response times when validating applicant details do not exceed the limits specified in non-functional requirement 3.4. Basically, this is a test condition to test performance of this entry of applicant details. It's about performance and risk level is D. So will you accept or reject? Is it a good test condition your team did or not?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you will not reject. So it is a wrong answer. You have to identify that one, you will reject actually. Okay. The third one is to demonstrate that applicants aged 15 and 70 respectively are not stored in the customer database. So for this, applicant age must be between 18 and 65 inclusive. They wrote a test condition to demonstrate that applicants aged 15 and 70 respectively are not stored on the customer database. Will you accept or reject this? Okay, we will not come to the answer.
Yeah.
We will look at the fourth one. To demonstrate that only applicants resident in the UK are considered for mortgage application, because applicants must be, so that is a good test condition only.
Yes, sir.
Third test condition, what is the problem with this third test condition? From strategy point of view, it is not a wrong or bad test condition, but when you link up to your test strategy, there is a problem with this. What is the problem? Your test
So it
strategy
is specific to 15 and 17 only. 15 and 70 only.
Basically 15 and 70 are equivalence partitions for that specification, but actually your test condition, your test strategy is telling wherever you have numerical ranges, mandatorily you build boundary value analysis and use other techniques as you deem fit. That is how your strategy is telling. Anywhere numericals are there, you must use BVA. If I use BVA, I will go with 17, 18, 19, 64, 65, 66. If I'm using 3-value boundary analysis to ensure that 17 and 66 are disallowed, 18 and 19, 64 and 65 are allowed. That kind of test condition I will put if I keep my test strategy carefully in my mind. This is the actually thing we will reject. Rest of the things will accept. But then this is the confusion. This whole thing will cause you. That is where every point mentioned in the scenario has to be carefully looked at. Okay. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think 2 more questions. Bear with me. Okay. Then we will stop because it took a lot of time today. Using scenario 3. A mortgage calculator function is to be developed where the customer enters data into 3 mandatory input fields. Now the team is into test cases and you are the test manager. You have to give input to them. So you basically you are a test manager. Your team is going from one step to another step to another step. Now in this scenario extension, we are coming to test cases. Okay. So now there are 3 mandatory input fields. Okay. Where customer enters data. One field is price of property. The second field is deposit to be paid. And third one is term of mortgage. These are the 3 fields and they are mandatory input fields. Upon receipt of all valid inputs, the system shall present the customer with top 10 recommended mortgages sorted into the interest rate order. So you will enter 3 inputs. Once system takes that, it provides an output. That output is top 10 recommended mortgages sorted into interest rate order. That is the recommendation it will give. Okay, with lowest rate first. So input, output, I am explaining, and your team came up with some test cases. Okay, and they have linked it to the risks again, You have to bring back your risk idea. Already we have talked. So the following 4 test conditions have been derived: TC1, TC2, TC3, TC4. Each test condition has been prioritized. Actually, test cases prioritized on product risk, where the priority level A to D corresponds with the risk level of the product feature being tested. So C for TC1, TC2, TC3, higher risk; TC4, lower risk. So what is TC1? To demonstrate that the price of property field contains a valid entry greater than the default £0. Okay, that is what is being tested. And TC2 demonstrate that deposit field contains a valid entry greater than the default 0 and less than the price of property field. So basically, whatever property price of property will be higher than deposit. That is the one thing you remember. To demonstrate, third one is to demonstrate that the term of mortgage field contains a valid entry greater than the default 0 years, but not greater than the current allowable maximum term. So whatever is the term, it should not be more than that. These are the descriptions of test cases. The fourth one is B level risk, to demonstrate that the first 10 mortgages are displayed within the specified response time per non-functional requirement. Actually, it's a B level thing. Typically, D only we are telling performance test will be done, but they have identified a test case. Keep that in mind. Okay. Now, the question is, for 4 test cases have been written by your test analysts to address the test conditions. Okay. These are the 4 test cases. Each test case has been recommended for inclusion in the regression test pack. Finally, all these test cases you will put into regression test. Some of them you will put, some of them will not put. Which one of these test cases would you accept for the regression test pack? Out of these 4, which one are you okay to put it into regression? Because your strategy is talking about what has to be regression tested, which kind of risk levels and all. We have to go back if you have to remember that. Okay, on the basis of its completeness and consistency with the design test conditions and the organizational test strategy. Okay, so we have to carefully look at each of this test case and identify which one you will put to regression test pack. Okay, that is the question. First one is inputs. You will be giving price £325, deposit £2,000. It's okay. Less than this, that's good. Term of 20 years. Expected result is inputs accepted and first 10 mortgages displayed in correct rate order and not exceeding current agreed response time. So this test case is a performance test case. These are the inputs you will give, and once output comes, it should not exceed current agreed response time. But this particular test condition risk level is actually B. For B, in fact, we are not doing any performance testing. So there is no way we can put it into regression test pack. Okay, so it can be a potential wrong answer. Okay, then the second one is inputs. Price £200, deposit £200. Again, this is it has to be less than the price of the property. Okay, so anyway, because of this itself, it can be wrong. Then third one is inputs. Price £100,000, deposit £10,000. Good. Term 25 years. Yes, we have specified all 3 mandatory fields. Expected result, inputs accepted and first 10 mortgages displayed in correct rate order. This is complete with respect to mandatory fields, expected output. If this test case can be moved to a regression test pack. But let us not jump to conclusion. Read the fourth one. Price 500,000, deposit 100,000. That's okay. Expected result. So here the mandatory field of term has been missing. Okay. So it can be potential wrong answer. So that's how we answer these questions. They are long, they are detail oriented, but they are not complex. Okay. So then let me move to I think this is the last question. Okay, sorry for taking a lot of time because I wanted to complete anyway. Hope this has been useful, but this is the last question. Okay, so using scenario 3, now we are extending. Now you have completed the first phase of the project. Okay, the first release of the Your Money project has been completed, and a lessons learned meeting was staged to see what improvements should be made for the second release. Okay, so you are in the retrospective. The meeting learned that too many defects were found by the test team during the system testing. So the release 1 experience is telling that a lot of defects have been found during system testing. Not good. Most of the defects could have been found in the unit testing. Okay, resulting in overrun on test schedules. So that is why we slipped on test schedules and also test budgets. Analysis of the defects showed the following. A high proportion was attributed to inadequate testing of code structure. So when will you do code structure? Unit level testing. Okay. So basically a high level proportion was attributed to inadequate testing of code structure for changes made to the financial calculation engine. That's where actually most of the defects occurred. They could have been found by good unit testing actually. Second point is there was slow processing of user inputs by components spanning several risk levels. So performance also was not good. Whenever you are giving user inputs, there was a lot of slow processing spanning several risk levels. In our strategy, what we told, performance testing will be done for functionality with a risk level of D, or modules with a risk level of D. Whereas security testing, we told C and D. Okay, so anyway, these are the things we learned during our retrospective. Now, as a test manager, which of the following improvements would you recommend to be most effective? So select the 3 best options. Okay, understood the question now? The answer is in this page now. Okay, so you have to keep going back to your question, going back to your test strategy, because you have to select the right 3 choices. Okay, what will you recommend as process improvements? Anyway, the first one, let us read. Introduce more formal reviews for release 2 requirements. What will you do? Will you do it or not? Introduce more formal reviews for release 2 requirements. Let's see from strategy point of view. This has happened in unit testing. It is not really something to do requirements. Okay, so basically in the lessons learned, you are learning about lot of defects were found in system testing, and further analysis when you did, you came to know that the structure testing for the engine part is not done well, and also performance was poor. These are the things you have to really suggest your improvements. So first one, telling generally, let us do requirement review. Is it a good improvement you will recommend or not recommend?
No, sir, not recommend.
Yeah, you will not recommend because that is not relevant. Tighten entry criteria for system testing. Is it a good improvement or not? Why you allowed such a code to come to system testing? Maybe you haven't specified your entry criteria strongly. That's what happens actually. If you tell very good entry criteria that this much of coverage should have happened, this kind of things have happened, then only it will happen. So will you recommend this or not?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is a very important thing. If anything is leaking into system testing, immediately as a test manager, yes, for the next time I have to tighten my entry criteria. Then only I can control it. That is the only way. Okay. Increase development team resources. Will you do that?
No, sir.
Our area, no good white box. Yeah. Adding more resources to a problem is actually doesn't solve always. Actually, sometimes it is like adding fuel to the fire. So it will burn much more. So adding resources is never a good process improvement, at least to this context now. Increase test team resources. Same. Change the test strategies requirements for unit test coverage.
Yes, sir.
Will you recommend? But let us go back and see what we have really in the test strategy we are doing. 10 points we have done. I'm going back there. Okay, a little bit back I have to go. Unit testing must achieve a minimum of 100% decision testing coverage. Already you have put a very strict strategy. Okay, 100% decision testing coverage you are doing. If you are doing achieving that, a lot of problems will be solved. Maybe the team is not doing. So the strategy is already talking. Where is it? I'm going back again, because in your when you are answering you will go back and forth actually. Okay, already unit test coverage strategy is very clearly telling what to do. Okay, this may not improve anything. There are more issues may be improved. Okay, but anyway, I'm telling no. Review the test strategies criteria for performance testing. So this performance issues have happened across risk levels. Our test strategy is telling do performance testing only for the components with risk level D, highest risk. Maybe for the next release I will change this. Do it for BCD, because we are finding more and more such problems in lower risk functionality. So will you recommend or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that strategy, test strategy has to be improved for next release. Teach the test team white box test design techniques.
No, sir.
Anyway, no, because that will not solve any problem. Unit testing has to be still performed by those who write code. Okay. Then review the test strategies criteria for code review. Some of these things could have been solved, but what is our test strategy talking about? Code inspections and code reviews. It is telling do code reviews only for risk level D. Maybe you will go and change not only risk level D, you do some include BCD and do code reviews. That may be a potential improvement in the test strategy will do. Okay, so this is how we can answer these questions. So today we have taken a lot of time. I'm very sorry for that, but anyway we have completed. So you have any questions, please ask me. Otherwise,
I have a question, Madhu.
Okay, please.
So for example, in exam, so if they mention risk as A, B, C, D, then is it always that A is less and D is high always?
Yeah, in the question itself, they will mention. Sometimes they may tell risks are assessed at 1 to 5. 5 is the highest, 1 is lowest. So you have to read that question. Not always. One person as assembling the question uses a particular language. So, but you have to see that which is highest and which is lowest.
Okay. So that will be mentioned in the test in the question.
The question itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever I have taken these questions, they are from ISTQB site only. Just I wanted you to experience, because you are learning theory. Now you are also looking parallelly exam. While I am answering the question, you may be thinking also, and sometimes you may be thinking wrongly. So what I want you to do is that why I went wrongly, that you just reflect on that, think back, then understand that topic from ISTQB point of view correctly. Then you will crack this exam. It is not that complex. Only thing, we have to keep on practicing this. So today basically we spent on practice for the first chapter to understand the level of complexity of questioning and how we have to understand the syllabus. I wanted to give you a little bit of idea on that. Okay. Any more questions, please?
No.
Okay. So thanks so much for your attention. Hope I have not bored you. I will anyway record this session, recorded session. I'll put it on the YouTube. So have a wonderful weekend. Learn, have fun.
Thank you, Madhu.
Okay, sir.
Have a nice weekend.
Bye bye.
Thank you all.
Bye bye. Yeah, bye bye.
Thank you.